What's up, YouTube? So the video today is going to be a bit of a longer one, and I want to talk about some of the decisions that you will have to make that are going to affect the kind of store and business that you're going to become. And the thing with a lot of this is you may not even know that you're making these decisions, and what it's going to lead to later on down the line. As you kind of make these decisions going further and further in, it becomes much harder to change course if your business is turning into something that you didn't really intend it to be. So a lot of people when they start this business, right, they just think, hey, I'm starting a business, I'm going to be buying product, I'm going to be selling product, I'm going to be growing from that. What you don't realize is that you're building a portfolio, right, a profile. That profile is going to determine what kind of customers you attract, the opportunities that you're going to have as you grow, and ultimately the kind of business that you're going to become, right? And a lot of these are going to happen long before you even realize it. Not in one big decision, but in many little ones that happen along the way. So you're not just making transactions, but you're building a trajectory. Okay. Now, I don't want this to be a like judgment call on what kind of business is better than another, right? There's a lot of successful businesses that operate under completely different models, right? Costco succeeds using the model they've built, and a smaller boutique store is successful in the model that they've built, right? They operate differently. So this is just about understanding how the decisions that you make for your business, that you may not even realize you're making, how that's going to affect what you're, growing into, and hopefully what you're going into is what you intended. And if not, hopefully this video will kind of help you understand those decision points along the way so you can recognize them and see how the decision that you're making is going to affect where you go from there. Okay. Um, so, with that being said, kind of the first thing that you start with is everyone's going to be looking at their profit model, right? So, this will be one of the first ones you kind of run into when you're first starting your business. After this, everything kind of starts flowing out from this initial decision that you make, right? So, what I mean by that is some stores focus on velocity, right? They have to move product quickly, fast restocking, focus on momentum, movement, constant movement, very high speed. Other stores are going to focus on an identity, right? Carrying different inventory, wide variety of things. So they position themselves a little differently and operate a little differently because of that, right? Here's the key point though, your profit model doesn't just affect your revenue, it affects how your entire business behaves, okay? Once your business starts operating a certain way, it starts shaping into what it's going to become. So, what I mean by that is based on your model, you will train your customers. So, what do I mean by that? If you're focused on fast moving product because you need to just churn and burn, right? That's the term that, I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with, churn and burn. You can lead to customer conditioning. And a lot of you guys won't understand that this is happening or that you're doing this. Okay? It's not intentional, it's just structure for your business, right? So, from personal experience, when I was early on in my business, I told myself, okay, I need to create sales. I need to generate revenue so I can buy this thing, buy that thing, whatever it is. I need to free up cash. So I ran a lot of promos, right? I was doing things like, Funko Fridays, buy one, get one type deals, Mega Loot Mondays, where, I would discount this collection or that collection or whatever it was, right? Any kind of special promotion. And it worked, right? It would generate some sales, it would create some momentum. Um, but over time, I kind of realized what was happening. And I could see that outside of those promos, sales would drop, right? Now, obviously, you would say to yourself, well, yes, the whole point of the promo is to increase your sales. What I didn't realize that I was doing, though, is I was training my customers to wait for the promotion, wait for the sale, right? I was inadvertently kind of signaling to them that I'm operating as a kind of like discount type retailer, right? So the normal price is not really normal price. Just wait until the weekly sale because on Tuesdays D&D went on sale, Funkos and collectibles went on sale Fridays, right? I will train them to engage with my business in that manner, um, and I wasn't trying to become that kind of business, right? No hate on them, right? But Timu operates in a different manner than say Costco or a smaller boutique store, right? They still are successful. They still have their sales volume and revenue coming in, but the way they do that is different. And so, because I was training my customers to adapt to that system that I had built, I wasn't just making pricing decisions, but I was shaping expectations on my customers, right? So, expectations are harder to change than just your prices, right? Once customers learn a pattern, changing that pattern takes a long time. And I didn't realize I was doing that. So, my profit model kind of influenced my customer expectations because of what I was doing. Okay. The next thing is your capital structure, right? So your capital has to support the system that you've now created. If your business depends on fast turnover, your capital has to move constantly, right? Whenever you get product in, you need that product to move out so you can get that revenue, invest it into some new inventory, bring it in, and throw it back out again, right? So inventory sells, you reinvest that capital, and the process kind of cycles like that, right? That churn and burn. Slower inventory becomes much harder for you to support and to carry because it's a drag on your entire structure. It interrupts your cycle. So your capital isn't just supporting your business, it's supporting your expectations, right? If you have a model where you are able to carry slower moving inventory without having to worry about I need to discount it to move it, you can carry a wider breadth of items, right? You can kind of shape that you are becoming more of the kind of store that carries variety, right? Rather than the kind of okay, I have to only carry the hot product, the thing that's going to move fast, and as soon as that kind of slows down a little bit, I got to dump it and move on to the next new hot thing, right? Again, not a judgment call. These are just different models, okay? So that kind of lends itself to your planning horizon, right? So what I mean by that is your capital structure determines how far ahead you are able to operate. Okay, some stores operate kind of just in the present, right? It's that churn and burn. They need the newest, hottest set because that has velocity. Once it slows down, they got to move on to the next one, right? Other stores can operate much further ahead. And here's the key point, right? Your capital structure determines your planning horizon. Your planning horizon determines what opportunities you're able to participate in. So, what does that mean? This comes into play with your distributors. Okay, a lot of people just think a distributor is just there and they distribute product, right? Wrong. They're not just distributing product, they're distributing risk. At some point in every TCG's life cycle, it was new, right? For example, right now, One Piece. It's very hot, it's very popular. But at one time, it was new. Okay? It was an unknown. No one knew what it was going to turn into. And in fact, it took quite a few sets until we start seeing the level of hype that it's at now. Okay? So every new product involves uncertainty. A distributor who carries this new product has to manage that uncertainty, right? They don't eliminate it, they just manage it. So your distributor relationship isn't just based on what you say, but it's based on what your business structure allows you to do. Okay? If you are the kind of business where you have to have high velocity, that means you're probably only really interested in the newest releases, the hottest SKUs, right? Whatever's going to move fast. They see that, right? Developer relationships develop from constant behavior, not just an individual transaction. So if you're the kind of business that can only really participate in whatever's hot, well, you're just kind of like everybody else in the crowd that's coming in for okay, this this set is hot. I'm ordering a bunch of this, and then the next one it's not too hot. I'm kind of stepping back. I'm not really touching this game over here or these kind of products, and they see that, right? Versus if you're the kind where you've kind of built a wider base on a variety of items, you don't mind slower inventory. You can take some risk and capital on an unknown product. You're able to participate in the the pre-sales, the pre-orders with your distributor. You can support a new game, and they see that, right? A distributor will see and differentiate between those that help them manage risk and participate in supporting a new game that the distributor now has all this product for that they need to try to foster versus a business that is really only coming in for this is already hot, popular, established. They're coming in for that, and I probably won't see them until the next big one, right? Again, not a judgment call. I'm just saying that the way your business structure operates will determine the amount of relationship building that you have with your distributor. That relationship that you have with your distributor will determine the opportunities that you have going forward from that. And so now that you've kind of gotten through, right, you've decided your profit model when you built your business. You have started to set your customer expectations, right, customer conditioning. You've built your capital structure to support the model that you've chosen. That capital structure has determined your planning horizon around products and releases and inventory movement. That has then in turn developed your relationship with your distributor, right? Whether that's more of a relationship style where you can support them with new releases and wider breadth of SKUs, or whether it's a little more transactional, you come in and this is what I need and that's kind of it, right? Based on all these things now, it kind of leads to your brand identity, right? This is, at a certain point, it stops being just your decisions, but how other people see you, okay? Customers will see you a certain way. Distributors will see you a certain way. The platforms that you're on will see you a certain way. And this is something you're already doing yourself, right? Think of a certain store that you may shop at if you know it, right? Is it one that always has the latest product? But you don't really go there and you don't find vintage stuff, or maybe you don't find a whole lot of other interesting items other than current uh, sets. Is it a store that always has like the lowest price? You know that hey, this store is the one they've got the lowest price. No one ever really beats them, but maybe their stock isn't always the best, right? Maybe sometimes there's some quality issues or whatever it is, right? Or another store you go to and you say, you know what, maybe the prices aren't the best, but they have a lot of older product, a lot of vintage product, wide variety of more interesting things that I might be able to find, right? These weren't built gradually, right? These patterns, these repeated behaviors, it is their identity, right? It became what happened when their decisions led to that reputation, okay? And here's the part that you may not realize about those stores or even your own store, if that's what you're building or looking to build, right? A lot of store owners didn't really intentionally choose their identity, they became it, okay? Based on all those other factors. They're accumulated decisions that form their identity. And once that identity formed, it becomes very difficult to change it, right? Imagine, again, no hate, but just imagine if a store like, 99-cent store decided, you know what, we want to become a more bougie boutique type store. Is it possible? Sure, they could change their pricing model, they could change the type of inventory they carry and quality or customer service level or whatever it is, but people see it as the discount store where you go and you buy cheap goods, right? It would be very hard for them to change that identity. Again, not impossible, but I just want to kind of illustrate that point, right? So you're not just changing your business, but you would have to change how people see you. And that can be very difficult once you've kind of gone through these different decision points over a period of time and kind of set in those expectations and those viewpoints. So that's something that I realized when I started my business, right? I thought I would just be buying product, selling it, right? Trying to grow, improve. But over time, that's when I started kind of seeing the bigger picture here and began to realize I wasn't just making inventory decisions, I was shaping what my business would become. And I had to pivot at certain points in order to kind of see, okay, I made this decision. It was leading me down this path. That's not the kind of business that I was trying to become. So I had to, try to revert course. But as you get further down those lines and making those key decisions further in, it becomes harder and harder to do. So once I realized that, I stopped kind of thinking about what would help me just today, but what would help me, a month from now, 6 months from now. How is this decision going to affect me 5 years from now? And once I was able to start thinking about that and seeing it that way, it became much easier for me to kind of plan out, okay, if this is where I am, this is where I want to get to, it made it much easier to pick the decisions that would ultimately lead that route of where I wanted to go rather than thinking about, I have this decision in front of me now. What do I need to do? What sounds good? Without thinking of where that was really going to ultimately lead, right? So none of these decisions are permanent, but it makes the next one harder to change, right? And over time, these decisions will compound, and your business will become something not because of just one or two decisions, but it's an entire chain that you've made. So just keep in mind, right? A lot of businesses didn't become what their owners decided. It was what their decisions led them to. Okay, so a successful store owner, they're not the ones who chose perfectly, but they're the ones who chose intentionally. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you have any questions, I'd love to hear them. And I will see you guys next time, and I will continue to make business content like this. So if you want to see more, give me a thumbs up and go to epiclootcollectibles.com and buy my stuff. I'll see you guys next time. Take care.